All right, so evolution of marketing is the theme, and as you can see, this case study, before we get into it, I'm going to talk a little bit about a bold statement, how brand strategy can save the world. Catherine actually touched a little bit upon this, especially with Gen Z. And by the way, I do have 2 daughters, and they do love Paw Patrol a good amount, and it saved many of crazy dinners in restaurants, so thank you. All right, before I dive right in, I wanted to do a quick survey. I'm just curious. When it comes to marketing and branding and the like, it's really about, if you think about just love, right? What do we love? And what are we passionate about, right? So I'm going to throw a couple of well-known, I think you guys know these brands. Just shout out. Who are the iPhone people? Oh my gosh, jeez. Okay, just shout out why. Why do you guys like iPhone? User friendly. Everyone else has it. Okay. Any Samsung people? Yeah. All right. If you guys are Korean, I'm ashamed of you guys. No, I'm just kidding. All right, cool. Next one. Uber and Lyft. Who's Uber? Okay, why Uber? Why Uber? Cheaper. Whoever's cheaper. Okay, so no brand loyalty there. Okay. What about Lyft? Who are the Lyft people? Tell me why. Why Lyft?
Better customer service.
Customer service. Good. Anything else? Safer. You feel safer.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I don't like the app.
You don't like the app. The UI, UX you don't like for Lyft. Oh, okay. Sounds good. How about these guys? Who's Patagonia? And I want you to think about your answers in the sense of a consumer, as a friend, as a family member, not as an MBA. Take your MBA hats off. Why Patagonia? Image. Okay. Integrity. Quality. Any North Face people?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you guys off from the East Coast?
Yeah.
Why North Face?
Because I can afford it.
Okay. Affordability. Cheaper. Okay, cool. All right. Well, but it's getting a little harder now. Whole Foods, Trader Joe's. Oh, whoa. Okay. Let's kill Whole Foods. Who's Whole Foods? Why Whole Foods? Better what? Okay. The hot bar. What was that? The experience of Whole Foods. Okay. Who are the Trader Joe's people? Whoa. Oh, okay. Why Trader Joe's? Friendly. Value. Okay. Okay. This next one should be a little easier, I think. I don't know why the UCLA players look small. But I don't know why what that picture was. But who are any Bruins in here? All right. Okay, Trojans. I guess everyone's a Trojan. Okay. And then one last one for fun. Old Kanye or new Kanye? Yeah? Okay. Any new current Kanye people? Any current Kanye people? Yeah? I mean, he's constantly evolving, right? With the theme of evolution. Okay. Awesome. So some of the descriptors, of course, we saw the affordability side of stuff, right? Value. But I also heard a lot of kind of, almost like you're describing a person, right? Friendly. Integrity. Those kind of emotions that you feel when you experience those things. And I don't know if you guys remember the film Moulin Rouge, but it starts with this quote. The greatest thing you'll ever the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. And in a lot of ways, this is life, right? I majored in theater arts in undergrad. All right, you got some theater people here. Awesome, cool. I was more of on the writing side, but I had to take an acting class in college, and my acting professor would always say, it's always about love. Love, love, love. Doesn't matter if you're the villain, if you're the hero, if you're the supporting, whatever character you are, you need to understand them. And the way you're going to understand them is what do they love, right? And that is really at the heart of marketing. No matter what the landscape is at, it's about love. So with that, let's go into the evolution of marketing. And what I'm going to talk about is this human-centric approach to it. And before we go into the evolution of marketing, I thought a way to introduce myself would be my evolution. If you guys were here last year, you'll understand some of this. Yeah, I know, I was pretty cute. I was born in Seoul, Korea. And then soon afterwards, when I was 5, I moved to I'm very proud of this picture, I must say. I had a helmet for hair, apparently. But I moved to the great state of New Jersey. Yeah, any New Jersey people? All right, cool. Bergen County, anyone? No? Okay. But I grew up there, spent K through 6th grade there, and then I was naturalized as a U.S. citizen. Woohoo! And then, yeah. And then, strangely enough, soon, several years after that, my dad went back to Korea as an expat, so our whole family moved back to Seoul. And I went to middle school there at a foreign school in Seoul, which was, a side note, was a trip because K through 6, I was a Korean American. At the time, there weren't that many Asians in my school, so I had to adapt. I had to figure out what my identity was. When I went back, it was a complete new thing. I went from 3% Asians to 90% Asians, and they were all Asian American expats, pretty much. And it was quite a transition. I went from the unpopular, quiet kid to all of a sudden, because I'm part of the majority, I'm a popular kid. It was really weird. But I spent 2 years there, and then in high school, I went to New Hampshire to a prep school. Any East Coasters? Any prep schoolers? Yeah? All right, cool. Awesome. Which one?
I'm from New Hampshire.
Oh, no way.
But I did not go to prep school.
That's probably a better thing, actually. And that was another change, right? So for me, the story of adapting, the need to adapt, learning other people's stories started to become very clear for me. Soon after, I went to Brown University for undergrad, where I studied theater. And then after college, as you heard, I worked at Turner Broadcasting for a good number of years. And and I started in the creative space as an on-air producer. While I was there, I wanted to do my own documentary firm, and I came here to Marshall because I realized I knew nothing about how to start a business. And within the first two months, that summer kind of crazy crash course semester you guys have in the first year that you guys survived, thankfully, was when I met one of my mentors, Sasha Strauss. I always have a plug for him. If there's anything you do in the 2 years that you are here, please take his class. Please take his class. Okay, so other than introducing myself, there was a reason for this, right? We're talking about humanizing your brand. And what does it take? And if you think about the ways a child progresses and learns and grows, we can also see parallels on how a brand can do the same thing, right? So if you think about it, as a child, you're born, a newborn, and you're going to the toddler years, that's when you're starting to learn some emotional cues, right? A tone of voice starts to come, a personality already starts to be built. It's pretty amazing. I have 2 daughters, and they're going through that right now, and it's remarkable on what the human brain at that age is taking in. So those kind of things are already developing inside them. You go into elementary school, and that's when this desire to be accepted becomes super strong. And that's something that stays with us for the rest of our lives, right? We want to be accepted. And that's when we start to first conform a little bit, right? And I saw this in a very real way. This is my eldest daughter, Chloe Grace. She absolutely loves Elsa, as most kids do. And we were at Disneyland, and she saw the real Elsa, as she calls her. And she just wouldn't let go of her, right? And she's a shy kid, but she just held on to Elsa for a long time. Later on, we went to a play date. There was an older girl, 2 older girls with her. And one of the older girls still liked Elsa, so she took out a blanket that had Elsa on it, and they were going to play on it. And then the other older girl said, Elsa, that's for babies. I don't like Elsa. And my daughter denied Elsa. She said, yeah, I don't like Elsa either. And it broke my heart. right? And you see this at a young age. She was only about maybe 2.5, 3 at the time, but she was like, oh yeah. And that showed me that even at that young age, right? Even more at the elementary level, the desire to be accepted is very, very strong. And you see other people and you want to kind of get their acceptance, right? And you'll start to see some similarities in the business side of these things soon. In middle school, the awkward years, right? You start to form identity groups for the first time, right? You're starting to get labeled by your peers, right? Oh, he's the athlete, or she's the athlete, or so forth. So that starts to happen, but also this is a time when the kids are first really trying to experiment and trying new things and having an open mind, right? High school comes and talk about self-promotion. High school is all about self-promotion. Sometimes grad school can be like that too. But self-promotion becomes a big, big thing. Cliques really start to grow roots inside people's minds, right? You have the stereotypes. You have the geeks, freaks. You have the jocks. You have the nerds. You have the band people. You start to get these cliques, right? And you almost start to believe in what people are putting you into. You're pigeonholed into certain things sometimes, and you're like, you know what, maybe this is who I am. College comes around, and a lot of us rebrand, if you will, right? Sometimes we're sick and tired of being labeled as one thing, and we tell ourselves, you know what, I'm going to take a chance and be something different. Or I'm going to amplify even more of who I was in high school. These things start to happen. You start to manage that brand, that personal brand that you have. So the parallels start to come about, right? Let's take a product, a new company, if you will. Through that life cycle, the early stages of marketing, if you will, we can almost pull from learnings of a human life. So first, we talked about the developmental stage, right? The tone of voice is already started to become true, right? The founders of the new startup, right, is usually their vision that has that voice to that brand, right? Whether it's a Dollar Shave Club, think about their voice, right? That was an early on thing when they first started, for example. When it comes to acceptance, what happens next? Oh, let's look at best practices. Red Bull is doing a great job with media and content, right? Let's just do that. But what if it makes no sense for your brand to have video content? That could be the case, right? But we want to be like someone else that we admire, right? We want that acceptance to happen. Middle school is when you start to get early marketing, right? Marketing is about, this is who I am, and I'm going to tell people about it, right? And then in high school is the advertising side to it. A lot of people see advertising is repeatedly saying the same thing over and over again, right? It's the taglines, it's big ideas, dream crazier, as Nike would say, right? And you're advertising that, and you're self-promoting in that sense. When it comes to college, we talked about rebranding yourself, understanding your place in the world. Same thing happens with a product, right? You know, we grew up to this stage, we went to Series C funding, and now we're about to scale up. Maybe we'll rebrand. You saw Uber do that, right? You see all these startups coming up with new logos and new design elements and things like that to further their story, right? And then you have to manage that. What usually happens is that's where it ends, right? And a lot of great successful companies do a great job with brand management. And sometimes when it's needed, they go through another rebrand, another reimagining of what their place is in the world. But when we want to go back to talking about how brand strategy can really save the world, we have to take it a step further. At a Little Bird agency that I'm at, we believe that brands have to grow up in today's landscape specifically. Things have been changing. They've already been changed, where the way we approach marketing today is very different. It has to be different. Especially just if you think about just the consumer groups alone, millennials and Gen Z, right? You're in the thick of it. Activism is a real thing, right? Catherine talked about that too. Because of all these things, because of technology, because information is at our fingertips, marketing has to be approached differently, which I'll get into in just a second. So for me personally, and sometimes for brands, you have to go through this kind of a discovery phase, right? You have to answer some tough questions, be honest with yourself, get your leadership board in a room and say, hey, what do we really think about ourselves, right? What do consumers really think about ourselves? Are we self-aware right? Or is it kind of like I know Blockbuster's trying to make a comeback, but Blockbuster, right, was not necessarily self-aware. They thought there's nothing that can take them down. But maybe there was something there if they maybe listened to their consumers a little more. Maybe they had some more insights. And for me, it was here in grad school, here at SC, when I finally realized this is what I want to do with storytelling, is in brand. That's what I want to do, right? My whole life, I searched for how do I tell stories? First, it was theater, right? Writing for that. Then it was film and then TV. And I wanted to do this. I wanted to do documentaries. And then it was here I realized, no, this is how I want to tell stories. And I got there because I had to be honest with myself. During your program here, you're already probably experiencing something like this, where you kind of feel forces trying to pigeonhole you into certain things, right? Pick one, consulting, marketing, or finance. Like, I don't know, maybe there's something in between. The good news is there is, right? So don't let anyone pigeonhole you into any specific role, because that's not what the landscape is today. All right, so to get into the evolution of what today's landscape is and why marketing is evolving at such a rapid pace. It comes down to that today's consumers, they don't purchase products or features. They don't buy brands anymore. It's not about transactions. It's about aligning yourself to a brand's values. And you're starting to see this. We brought up Patagonia, right? And I heard integrity when that came up. We respect when a brand takes a stance. That is becoming more and more relevant, and I'll even say more needed if you think about it. Just pull up in a macro view real quick. Forget about salaries and what job am I going to get to be successful MBA. Just put all that to the side and look really high up real quick. It is needed today, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So I'm going to go through two very quick snapshot in the industry kind of case studies, and then I'm going to do a longer one that A Little Bird, our agency, did. So the first one here is about Rafa. Any cyclists here? No? Have you guys heard of Rafa? They're UK apparel for biking. This is their CEO, and I'll read it for us. For us, it's about building relationships over time, encouraging that person to come back, helping them fall in love with the product through contact before they place their transaction. So you can already see this leader seeing that it's not about the transaction. It's about how do we have them fall in love with our brand. So what did they do? They had a great content team. Content is still very important. But I'm going to just point on one main thing that they did. Here is an apparel company, an apparel brand, right? Think about the other competitors that they're facing, not only in the bike world, but in general, right, in fashion. What they wanted to do is they understood from their core consumer group that cyclists, of course, they love how they look and they want to look good, but they realized, wait, there's a community here. There's a community here that's very strong. And they had a few insights coming out. They all love taking breaks on a long ride in Europe, and they want an espresso, right? Things like that. So they started to create this thing called an RCC, their cycling club. And it's a membership, it's a paid membership club, and it doubled as almost a retail store, but the focus was more on alleviating that consumer need of bringing a community, a passionate community together. And so they had some great baristas, they had some good coffee, they had areas where you can just kind of read a book if you wanted to, whatever that was. And people paid for this. And you can see here in 2015, when it started, it was only 600 members. And even that was awesome, we're doing something. And that quickly grew in 4 years. And now it's become a major revenue stream for them as well. But not only that, that helped bring in more business on the apparel side without focusing directly on apparel. Right? It was just more of a holistic and a meaningful approach to marketing. Another one real quick, Bumble. Who uses Bumble? Anyone use Bumble? No? You don't have to be shy. Okay, thank you. Okay. So the CEO of Bumble, I respect highly. And this is what she says. We're not getting out of bed in the morning saying, who can we sell to? We're saying, who else can we empower? Who can we inspire? What societal norms can we completely dismantle? That does not sound like a dating app CEO, right? But how amazing is that? That's her approach with Bumble. So you guys are maybe familiar with this. They have these things called hives, right? Bumble hives that pop up city to city. And they focus on things like professional development, bringing in speakers, and bringing in networking opportunities within these hives. Because they want to empower women and saying, look, you're a female, and guess what? You can be a CEO too. That is amazing. And you can see the success. Went from 22 million users, and in 2 years, more than doubled in users. That is incredible. But again, you're seeing a brand here understanding the consumer and almost acting as a friend would and not a company, right? Traditionally, a company's worried about what? Cash flow, transactions, revenue. And that's what marketing, as a reflection of that, was, right? Let's talk about the product and boost the features in that sense. But in today's landscape, it has to be bigger. You have to think aspirationally. And what did Bumble do? They did exactly that, and they did an initiative that almost seems counterintuitive, right? Oh, let's just do let's invest in these pop-ups. And by the way, these pop-ups are not cheap. But let's invest in that, and because that's what we believe in. And people love that. Okay, so what I'm gonna propose with the evolution is the new 4 Ps. You guys know what the 4 Ps are, yeah? I'm sure you guys have heard it. But the past, here are the 4 Ps, right? Product, price, place, promotion. So product, what's the hero product? What are the features and benefits? How do we talk about that? How do we differentiate? How do we innovate or die? That's what product is. Price, what's the competitive price point? What are our competitors doing and how can we stay relevant there? What are the other price points we need to consider, right? To make sure our margins are okay and things like that. Place, where? Shelf space. Is it e-com? Different channels. What is that? Promotion. How do we get people excited about this? Oh, let's give them deals or coupons, or how do we advertise those promotions? If you think about it, all of this is heavily, heavily product-centric. That's the old 4 Ps. Today's landscape and how it's evolved is the new 4 Ps. And we call it purpose, passion, perspective, and people. So instead of product and highlighting things like the features and benefits, we focus on what do we stand for? Let's think like liberal arts people for once and ask ourselves existential questions like, why do we exist? Those kind of questions we learned in undergrad, hopefully, about ourselves. And we should constantly do that. But now we have to ask that as our brand. If you're a brand manager, you have to be asking yourself that question. Why do we exist? How do we humanize ourselves? Because we have to be a human. Because why? Again, consumers are looking for relationships, not a transaction. Instead of price, there's a passion aspect to this. Studies have shown that consumers today are willing to pay a higher price point if they believe in your mission, right? They want experiences that they'll remember, not just a physical product. Place turns into perspective. Instead of figuring out how do we strategically place our items on a shelf that's eye level and pay a premium for that, it's more about, no, let's have a bigger perspective about this. Because guess what? If we focus on that, the consumers will come to us. We don't have to aim to them. So things like empathy, making sure you're authentic in what you're doing, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later too. And then instead of promotion and figuring out how to sell to the consumer, it's about let's focus on the people. Let's think about them as human beings and not someone who's going to buy a product from you. So you have to think human-centric, because why? Again, they're seeking a relationship. And if that's the case, you don't have to promote to them. Today's landscape, if there's anything that's more obvious right now, is you cannot sell to people. Interrupted media is gone, right? Look at TVs. Catherine mentioned, no one has cable anymore, right? But brands are still paying a lot of money for that. But what's the ROI on that today, especially with the Gen Zers? So interrupted media is going to the past. So if that's going to the past, how do we stay relevant? Well, let's make sure that we're here for the people and we're gonna stay true to what we believe. Okay, so a little bit about A Little Bird. As you heard, I'm the head of strategy there, and I want to share a little bit about our DNA really quickly before we go into one of our clients' case studies. We do a thing called a brand DNA. You may have heard it as a brand platform before, but we specifically use DNA because of the humanization side to it. This is actually, you're getting a sneak peek, we just rebranded. But it's not even public yet, and honestly, one of our team members is back there, she hasn't even seen this yet, so sorry. But you guys get a sneak peek, no one recorded this, I'm just kidding. Okay, so first of all, before we go into some of the key statements, this is our approach, and there's 3 pillars really. You already heard about tonight about data and insights and the importance of that. We strongly believe in that. We have to be ethnographers. We have to be therapists. We have to be philosophers. And we have to be observationalists. So we have to be in the environment and understand and have empathy to the consumer and understand the humanness to it. So if you are a liberal arts major, you're going to be a great marketer in the future. So keep it up. Okay, so data-based. Human-centric thinking, again, that's related to the design thinking aspect of it, right? Understanding that. And then story-driven. We have to create stories, and you hear this as a buzzword, but it makes perfect sense because as humans, we understand stories. We communicate through stories, and that is still the most effective way. So our mindset at Little Bird is we always think aspirational, right? We have to think about the emotional side to it and be very honest to ourselves, especially when we work with our clients. We have to tell them, hey, self-awareness is step 1. We have to admit certain things. What are our flaws? What are our strengths? And we have to be honest to that. But again, as I mentioned before, we need to answer certain existential questions, as you see on the slide. Okay, so our last thing of the DNA I want to share, or really the only part to it, and I'm going to read it for us. I know you're not supposed to read a slide, but I will read this for us. But this is what we believe in. At A Little Bird, we believe in each other. We believe in humanity's need to connect, to celebrate, and to dream together. And because of that, we believe in the power of wonder. That feeling of awe that accompanies those awesome aha moments. That feeling that ignites the human soul to believe in the impossible. It's where our imaginations are born. It's what our imaginations crave. And if we turn these ideas into actual human experiences, we will begin to see a future filled with endless possibilities. Reconnect to that time when we embraced the unknown, a time when we explored without abandon, and when we smiled without needing to know why. Activate wonder. And that's what we want to do with all of our clients, no matter what it is. That is our goal, is to create something very real and to bring the magic of wonder back into our lives, right? If you think about it, we have information so much, as I mentioned earlier, that it's almost expected, right? Waze literally told me tonight how to come here in the midst of traffic. I was a slave to Waze. I was like, oh, you tell me, you know? I know LA pretty well, but I was like, okay, Waze, you tell me, right? Yelp tells me where to eat. When was the last time you just went into a random restaurant not knowing what it was and just because you wanted to check it out without looking it up, right? But when those things are gone, those moments of wonder also disappear. The need for human connection is more relevant today than ever, not just between humans, but also with brands. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up here real quick. So we're talking about the evolution of marketing, and again, the human-centric approach. And my last thing I want to close with is really talking about, again, let's pause, go up, not just 10,000 feet, but 100,000 feet, if you will, and look at the earth, right? And I mentioned this a little bit, touched upon this earlier, but think about your place, okay? All of you guys here tonight, look at your peers, right? See who's here, because you guys are the future leaders of not just in the marketing world, but this world in a lot of ways, right? Within your communities, your families, and of course the companies that you'll be working with. There is a responsibility, whether you want to accept it or not, that is bigger, again, than the bottom line, right? It's not just the balance sheet and the income statements. I'm probably misusing those because I'm horrible at finance. But it's not just about that, right? It's about where this world is going. The landscape of the world today is one of the big drivers of changing this marketing landscape. We talked about the new consumer group. That is one big one. The second one is the global climate, right? We've never seen this much division on Earth, even within the United States. I believe that if brands grow up, if we all grow up with the brands too, and we see life in a different lens of not just the old 4Ps, but some of these newer 4Ps. And if we're brave enough to make certain decisions like CVS would about not selling tobacco products anymore because their brand is about lead with heart now. So they gave up $2 billion of revenue a year. Their CMO made that decision, and their CMO had to talk to the CEO and talk to their shareholders and convince them, guess what? We're losing $2 billion because we believe in leading with heart. So the question you have to ask yourself is, when you're in that position, will you be brave enough to make those kinds of decisions? Right? Think about that real quick, because that is your future, and the world's future also kind of hinges on that. So the last thing is basically that purpose is awesome and is needed in today's landscape, but it make no impact at all without any action. And that action is up to you guys. So I'll end there. Thank you very much. Any questions?